Okay, you're back here with the Diabetic Dad. Today we're going to be making a fresh, quick tomato marinara, completely homemade. Marinara, a lot of sauces, ketchup, what have you. Surprisingly, when you look at the nutritional labels on these things, they are chock full of sodium. They're chock full of sugar, added sugars, surprisingly. Don't believe me? Go take a look at your next ketchup bottle. I've actually got a really pretty healthy version of marinara that we typically get from Aldi. It's an organic marinara sauce, no added sugars. There's still 6 grams of sugar in here, and there are 480 milligrams of sodium. By comparison, what we're going to be doing is taking some of these whole peeled tomatoes. We're going to be just squashing them up, and we're going to be adding just a little bit of salt, just about a quarter of a teaspoon. We're going to be adding some oregano. We're going to be adding just a couple of red pepper flakes because I like the heat. We're going to be putting in 4 fresh minced garlic cloves, just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and that's basically it. And to all the paisanos out there, I apologize. I am not Italiano, but I do enjoy the food that y'all make. What we're going to be putting this marinara in, ideally, is going to be an easy weeknight chicken parmesan recipe, a little healthier than maybe what you're used to making. We've got some edamame noodles that we're going to put it over, so a whole bunch of extra protein, again, plant-based protein, higher fiber, lower bad carbs for you, so all around healthy meal. Hoping that this chicken parm tastes pretty darn good. Healthier sauce, healthier chicken as we'll see, healthier pasta, and so ideally this will be one that the whole family will enjoy. But what we're going to do first here is we're going to open up this can of tomatoes. We're going to keep about half the liquid, discard about half of it. The recipe here, again, coming from Lori Zanini's Diabetes Cookbook and Meal Plan for the Newly Diagnosed. It calls to either wash your hands first, obviously, before you start to squash up the tomatoes, or use it with a spoon. I have not only washed my hands, but I'm going to put on one of these special gloves as well, and we're going to squash up these tomatoes here in a minute. Then we're just going to turn on the stove. We're going to put the olive oil in there, put in the garlic. Right maybe 20 seconds, 15 seconds or so after the garlic goes in, we're going to add the squashed up tomatoes. We don't want the garlic to really brown or start to burn, and so that is noted here in the recipe. But this is the first time I'm doing this one. Hopefully it goes well. The reason I haven't up to this point is because, again, I found this fairly healthy marinara on the store shelves. Not really something that I feel like I need to make all the time on my own, but maybe I'll enjoy doing this. Maybe I'll grow some tomatoes this summer, and maybe this will be a true deck to table recipe to enjoy. So hope you're ready for it. Enjoy, and we're going to get started. And so right off the bat here, you can see that there really wasn't much liquid in this can of whole peeled tomatoes. And so I don't know if that's typical. I don't know if this was the liquid that Lori was talking about, but it kind of already looks like marinara, kind of a little bit of like a sauce anyway. So I'm just going to leave that in there. Right now, we're just kind of squashing up these tomatoes. All we're doing with squashing up these tomatoes is trying to break them down a little bit so that I assume when we put them on the stove, they're going to cook down a little bit easier. You don't want a whole bunch of chunks in your marinara, obviously. Typically, maybe 1 or 2 little tomato pieces here or there to let you know where it came from. But for the most part, what we're just going to be doing is squeezing these tomatoes up to make a sauce. Everybody knows what marinara is, I think, so you kind of know what you're trying to do here. Don't want to squeeze too hard. I've already gotten some red sauce on my countertop, probably a little bit on my shirt here. Again, patience is the virtue. But if this is the hardest part, we're basically already done. Okay, and so we're over here by the stovetop. We've got medium heat on. We are going to add 2 tablespoons of this extra virgin olive oil. Once we can start to tell that that's warming up a little bit, we're going to add in the salt. We're going to add in the garlic. We just want it to get fragrant. We don't even really want the garlic to brown. And then once that happens, we're going to add the tomatoes into the skillet. We're going to simmer that for about 15 minutes until the oil is going to start to separate. We'll hopefully see that become dark orange, and then the sauce will thicken. At that point, we'll add in the oregano. We'll add in that red pepper flakes. We'll stir it a little bit. We'll remove it from the heat. And then after it's cooled down to room temperature, we can store it for use. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And so again, right now we're just adding 2 tablespoons of the extra virgin olive oil to our skillet, which is on medium heat. All right, so the oil is starting to warm up. We're going to add just a half of a teaspoon of salt, and next is going to be the garlic. 4 freshly minced cloves of garlic, and we'll just distribute that all around a little bit. Now this garlic's been sizzling for maybe 10 seconds already, 15 seconds. I don't want it to brown. I do start to smell it. And so now we're going to add in the crushed up tomatoes. There they go. I'm just going to stir it around to combine it a little bit. And I'm going to set the kitchen timer to 15 minutes just so that I don't inadvertently lose track of time. Be surprised how frequently that happens. All right, so we're just going to let the heat stay on medium. We'll bring this to a little bit of a simmer. And if it seems like it's going too aggressively, we might turn the heat down just a little bit. Don't want to burn this marinara, obviously. But pretty straightforward recipe up to this point. I don't think I've gotten any I take that back. I've got something on my shirt. I don't know if it's water. I don't know if it's marinara or what it is, but there's something on here. So I'm going to take a minute to try to get that out. We will resume here in a couple minutes. Okay, and we're starting to see some bubbling going on here. And so what I'm probably going to do is just stir it up a little bit and turn the heat down just a hair to more of a medium-low. And assuming that bubbling doesn't get too aggressive, we'll probably keep it there. If it does, we'll just go right down to all the way low and let it simmer at that level for the rest of the time. It's still bubbling. It's bubbling a little more aggressively than I'd like. Again, I just cleaned off this shirt. I don't want to have to clean it off again. So I'm going to take it down to low. I think it will still continue to bubble a little bit. That would be the definition of a simmer, I think. We're just going to take it down just a hair. Okay, we're about halfway into our simmer, our cook. 8 minutes left of the 15 we started with. This thing is still bubbling nicely. It's a much more conservative bubble. It's what you would refer to as a simmer, I guess. So for future reference, you start at a medium heat. You get the salt in there. You get the garlic in there. It becomes a little bit fragrant. Again, you don't want the garlic to brown. Once you start smelling that garlic, you put the tomatoes in there. And then it would be safe to say probably to maybe wait for the bubble to start. And then once the bubble does start, you take it down to a low. And then you stay at low for the rest of the 15 minutes. We'll check back in here in a little bit. It kind of looks like some of the oil and the sauce is starting to separate a little bit, so I would imagine in the next 7 minutes or so that will only continue to separate further, but we'll see. All right, we're about 10 seconds away from the timer going off, our 15 minutes of simmering, and so when I look at this, it doesn't necessarily look to me like the oil is separating and becoming dark orange just yet, and so that could be because maybe I didn't drain half of the liquid like I thought. Maybe the recipe called to drain half the liquid. When I think of liquid, I think of like water consistency. What the can looked like when I opened it up was basically like tomato paste. I had to look at the can to make sure that I didn't buy the wrong thing. And no, it was whole peeled tomatoes that were actually in there, but the paste maybe was the liquid that Lori refers to. I don't know. But I put all of that in there because I thought it all kind of looked like sauce. I'm sure this is going to be just fine. It's going to be delicious. What we're going to do now that this is bubbling still, that we've kind of got a little bit of separation of church and state between the oil and the tomatoes, is we're going to add in our oregano and we're going to add in our crushed red pepper. We need a quarter tablespoon of the oregano, and then I'm just going to do 1/8 of a tablespoon of the crushed red pepper. I'm hoping the girls are going to want to try this tonight with the chicken parm. I don't want them to be too hit in the face with the heat, but at the same time, they should appreciate some heat. If you want more when you're actually eating it, you can put a little bit more in. I do want there to be just a hint of heat in the sauce though. So we're doing a quarter tablespoon of the oregano going in, and then we will do 1/8 of a tablespoon of the red peppers, red pepper flakes, I should say, of the crushed variety. And so those are in there. We're just going to stir this up to combine it. And then once we're done stirring, we're going to take this puppy off the heat and we're just going to let it sit and cool down to room temperature. Once it cools, we're good to go. Basically, if you wanted to eat it right away, you could. We're going to store it again for dinner for that chicken parm recipe that we'll be talking about. Otherwise, you can store this in your fridge for 3 to 4 days, as Lori says in her book, or if you want to put it into a Ziploc freezer bag, you can actually keep it for up to 4 months. So maybe you want to make a big batch of this stuff, keep it on hand. You find out you really like it. It has those health benefits. It's not quite as high in sugar, not quite as high in salt. Maybe some other additives that you can't even pronounce are on a marinara jar. You find out you like this. You add some different things, some different spices. You can keep it for a long time in the freezer. And again, this was relatively easy to make. I think start to finish, if I knew what I was doing, it would probably take about 15 minutes to simmer, maybe another, 5 for the prep. Pretty easy as far as cooking on your own is concerned. Okay, here we have our marinara. It has since cooled down to room temperature. Again, we're going to be adding this in today for the first time with another new recipe, the easy weeknight chicken parm. And so I guess you could say that it's here today and it'll be gone tomorrow. Quick update, the marinara is a big hit. Very fresh, very flavorful. Really hit home. Till next time.